Audi S3 8Y. And more importantly, why did I actually buy one? Now, everyone said since the day I bought the M3, which if you don't know, I actually had an Audi R8 and I sold that for the new G80 M3 because it's just something I really like. Everyone said you bought a rear wheel drive car, you've bought the completely wrong car, what are you doing? And I don't agree with them. I didn't agree with them. It might have changed. Now, I love the fact of the rear wheel drive M3, just the way it drives. I like to be able to get the back end out a little bit. I like the way it actually puts the power down. It is ridiculous because obviously if you do know and you do follow us, mine is pretty much 700 brake horsepower, 919 torque, and it's all rear wheel drive. And I know they do an X-Drive. I know the X-Drive, you can actually put the power to the rear. The reality is it doesn't drive the same. It just doesn't. I don't care what anyone says, even if you've got one, it doesn't drive the same when you do that. Yes, they do give you that facility, but the drive feel is completely different. The way it delivers the power is different, the drivetrain's different. It doesn't give me the same feel as what a rear wheel drive car does to me. And that's why I wanted the rear wheel drive M3. However, there is times where I have to park the car up and I can't use it, especially this time of year with the frost that we've got at the minute. It's actually impossible. We went to the Motorist on Saturday for an event with SC UK and the weather was alright. It was cold, but I drove it there. It drove alright. I put my foot down a little bit. It span up a bit. I couldn't really play with the guys with the RS5s and the SVR because it did go sideways a little bit, but it was alright. However, Sunday, as we know, it snowed and it frosted over. And my car literally slid down the road to block 3 other houses in. And I don't even know what it did to the car because it smelled like a clutch, it smelled like tyres. I was trying to get it to move in every way possible and it just wasn't going to do it at all. It was, quite frankly, a bit of a nightmare. So I decided to kind of brake. And yes, Jonathan, I bought a 4-wheel drive car, which is a thing I've said I don't like and I'm not really into them. They've got loads of benefits. They drive really well in certain weather, but they've no fear factor, they've no real fun factor. And I've actually changed my mind a little bit on that with the S3 8Y. This is actually, I think, the best Quattro that I've ever driven. And I know a lot of you Audi guys are going to actually turn around and say, you're full of shit. There's obviously an RS5, there's an RS6, there's RS4, which is RS5. There is better cars, and I actually disagree with you for once. I actually don't agree with that at all because I've driven excuse me, I've driven the RS3, the older gen RS3 I had, that was 550 brake. It was an absolute animal. It drove amazing. I could have bought an RS3 for the money I bought this for. Actually, I could have bought one for less. I've spent 33 grand on this car because of the spec that I wanted, so I've paid quite a lot. The old RS3 does not drive anything like this car. Not even a little bit. It's actually quite poor in comparison. God knows what they've done with this. I know they've done stuff with LSDs and trick mods on the rears of the diffs and things like the Golf R has the drift mode option, but it does not drive the same as what this car does. I drove the new RS3, the equivalent of this. It didn't really feel that good. I don't think the engine was as snappy as the older model. It didn't have the roar and the bite and the noise, so it kind of made the RS3, for me, not a car that I wanted to buy because at 55 grand second hand, it's not worth it. I'm really sorry if you own one, they're amazing cars, but you can buy an M3 for similar money that's standard against standard, and I would say an M3 is the way better car. So that's the reason why I bought an S3. There's something about this car, the way it drives, it's pretty phenomenal. I haven't, as I say, given it a lot of stick. I've not driven it the way I would normally drive a car just because the weather really hasn't been there. However, yesterday I did actually try and do a 0 to 60 run, and I don't know how, but I got 3.5 seconds in the wet without launch, which is wanting to make me think this car's mapped. All my figures are just completely wrong, so we're going to have to do some more tests at some point. However, I think there's a rule when I bought this car, it's actually one of the best cars I've bought out of the bunch of everything I've owned, and I've owned a lot of cars over the years. As I say, there was a lot more options available. There were like 140i, rear-wheel drive again. I needed to go quattro. So for me, there was only really this and an S5 or an RS5 as an option. And I know the RS5 is a much better built car, quality build and everything else. But as I say, the drivability in this, to me, is second to none. So with this, with the lowering springs, with the wheel spacers, with the Geo, this is out of the box pretty much one of the best cars I've actually owned. The things that do bug me, and there is quite a few things that bug me on this car, and I think it's quite pathetic, to be honest, some of it. Some of the features, for example, you put it in reverse, parking sensors beep. However, you don't get any visual display. And apparently that's another upgrade pack to be able to just get a visual display of the parking sensors, which is a load of crap. If you want to buy certain things for the actual navigation system, again, like a lot of new cars, they're upgrades, like monthly fees and just nonsense. There's a few aspects on the actual stereo that it doesn't give me because it's not had those packs chosen. The one thing I was really disappointed with is the clocks on this car. They look a little bit like an A1. When I bought this car, I actually expected them to have the kind of RS6 type, you know, the S3 type speedo where you can change the displays. And on the menu, it does have options to change the displays. However, apparently anything under 2022 doesn't have that display option. It's been an upgrade. So even though this has got the bigger screen and it's got more to it, that isn't an option. So I don't actually get any fancy dials in this car. So if you are going to be buying an S3, make sure it's a 2022 and make sure it has the bigger screen, because you're going to be let down, because this display, to be honest, is crap. It's really crap. So the things that kind of bug me with this car, and the downfalls to it, is the cheap plastic. It's pretty poor. When you actually look at this or feel this, nothing is that special. And that was the difference between an RS5 and what this is. I can certainly say the RS5 feels a million times better quality inside. Even the door cards, everything just felt a much better quality car. However, the stereo, even though they were identical, the stereo in the RS5 was not anywhere near the quality of what this car was. And I don't know why that is, but the stereo in this definitely has more punch, a better quality throughout. And I'm going to show you on another video later on a tip that I've actually done. When I've been setting the stereo up on this, I've found a certain way of adapting the speakers in the rear to be more primary, and it does make a massive impact in the actual quality of the stereo itself. So I'll put that in another video for anyone who's going to buy one or currently has one, because I think you'll find the quality of sound is much better. But that's the thing I will say about the actual car itself, is the build quality inside has gone down over the years. The previous gen S3, RS3, I do think felt a bit more sturdy inside. I do love the Audi Lamborghini Urus style vents that are actually inside it on the top. I know it's a bit cheesy and it's definitely not a Urus, but they're actually quite cool. They give a little bit of a Urus appearance. The whole display of the screen, the way the actual display set out and the dash, is probably one of the best in actual usability. I think it's easy to get to, everything works really well, and the voice activation is actually quite incredible. You can tell it anything and it will literally do it for you. I know you can press it with a button, but there's times where you don't want to be doing that, or you don't really have the capability because you're concentrating on the road. Now, one thing I'm going to go through next is the actual drivability of the car. Now, like I said, I've never driven this properly. I've not driven it hard. I've not been in a situation where I can, because the roads are so poor at the minute. But the handling on this car, and I don't know why, is definitely better than the RS5, in my opinion. There's a lot of people who are going to question that, and I understand if you have an RS5, you're going to go, you're talking crap, mate. It's an S3. It's not even an RS3. It's not going to drive as good as my RS5. I'm not saying RS5s drive bad in any way, because I actually don't think they do. They're really good. I just find them not as nimble, and that's due to the size of the car. And I also find the build quality on those and the suspension settings are probably slightly better made, but it stops them being as good on A and B roads. And I generally think I can take this around the bends and corners and actually drive at a better level due to the way this is set up. Now I know obviously the newer version, this particular model has had improvements, as I say, with the diffs and the LSD and things like that, and you can definitely tell over the previous gen, and whatever they've done has improved it. I can honestly say this is the best improvement on a 3 Series or an S3 that I have ever come across. The quality of this drive is next level, and we're going to put it now, as the roads at the minute are pretty bad. There's a lot of snow, I'm sliding everywhere, and there is a road down here. It seems to have thawed out a little bit, and I am going to put it in dynamic, and we're just going to see how it actually performs. Once I get out of this bit of road here, I'm going to put it in dynamic now. This car really does have some punch, and I'm not sure why. Again, I think it's mapped. I generally do think this car is mapped, because when I put my foot down, this car flies. It absolutely flies. I got a 0 to 60 time in this car of 3.5 seconds, which shouldn't be even there. Now, you guys who own these cars and have done a stage one, tell me if that's right, because I believe a standard 0 to 60 time is about 4.6 in these. I think it's a bit slower than the older gen. But this car, as I said, I've drove an S3 and I drove this almost back to back. This is quicker, this is punchier. The way the throttle delivers on this car is insane. The top end won't be the same, I can tell that. I've not really got to those speeds, but I know when I start getting to the higher speeds, this car, it's not going to do the same as what an RS3 is. Let's be honest, those, is it Daza engines? The 5-cylinder, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. You can get some serious power out of them. But this is, for me, this is not my main car. This is a bit of a winter weekend toy and maybe a daily for summer when I can use the M3 and actually enjoy it more on tours and events and go around Europe in it. So I didn't want to go to the expense of an RS3. And I would have tuned the hell out of it. So it would have ended up being another expensive car, where this, honestly, this car is fucking quick. It's really quick, this car. It just bolts to speeds. We're going to get this to CLP. We're going to get them to do some checks on the car. We're going to get it on the rolling road. If the map runs really well, if it's mapped, I'm pretty sure it is. I'm hoping it isn't, to be totally true. If this is standard, then my God, this car will be quick when it's mapped. And I can't wait for that. But I don't think it is. I'm truthfully going to say this car's mapped. But we're going to get it on the dyno, we're going to get it on the rolling road with those guys. They're going to check it out at CLP, they're going to do some inspections on it in general and do some servicing for me. And if they come back and say it's mapped and it's a good map, then I'm actually going to leave that on. If they come back and say this is just a cheap back straight 120 quid map, it's not fueling right, the time is not right, whatever, then I'm going to get them to tune it, I believe. We'll probably get a TVS tuning box, a tune mat on the map on the actual gearbox as well, because the TVS stuff is incredible. I know a good friend of mine had it done on his RS5 and he said it completely changed the car. I had it done on my old RS5 and my S3 a previous gen, and again it did make a big difference. But that's another thing I can say about this car, is I had an S3 previous gen saloon again, and we took it to stage 2 plus at CLP, and it was quick. I think it was 480. It's a few years ago, so I might be wrong, but I think it was 480. But this is definitely faster. This pulls more. The way it puts the power through the wheels, it's better. And I don't know why, because the old S3, it actually span up a lot and couldn't put the power through the wheels on turns, on corners, where this, and I know obviously if that had more power it's going to spin in effect, but I can feather the throttle and I know when I'm putting the power through, and that was definitely harder to drive. And I don't believe the Quattro system was as good as what this is. And as I said, this is it's literally next level. Now I'm going to come to a little bit here where there's some frost, and I guarantee you this will just spin up, but it'll still keep the power down, where the M3 obviously doesn't let me do that. And I really did struggle and do struggle to drive that. So this is why I've gone back to why I bought an S. Yeah, it's just spinning, you know. This is why I bought an S3. To me, this is actually one of the best cars I've owned overall. It's not a car I'd choose as a proper toy. It's not going to have the power for that. You would have to go to an RS3, but like I said, the RS3 doesn't justify its value to me at 50, 60 grand. It doesn't look any different. I don't think it's a better car. I think there's much better options. So value for money and the way this drives, I can honestly say I think this car is probably the best thing I've bought for a long time, even though I've still paid, like I said, 33 grand. But the whole car just looks incredible. It's a really good drive, and I definitely would recommend buying one of these cars. I'm going to give you a quick look round of the S3 8Y that we've bought. Now, actually, we haven't done any modifications to this for this time round. I'm not going to lie, we bought the car as it is, because actually, this was going to give me pretty much the layout and design that I would have done myself, which at the present time, with the way the business is, it was worth spending a little bit more and having the car pretty much done. There's a few things I'm going to do. One of them's primarily getting the exhaust done, so I'm going to go into Tony Banks and I'm going to be getting that exhaust changed. I think what we're doing is actually just going to do a res delete, because I still like my valves. I don't actually mind the tips on the back of this, to be fair. They're actually not a bad design. I think they're a reasonable size. Obviously, I'd love to go with the ovals, but it's going to make it look like an RS3, and it's not an RS3. And I don't want people to think it is a rep or anything like that. It is literally an S3, and they need to understand that that's the engine that's in it. So I think we're going to do a res delete initially. Apparently, you don't get a lot of sound from it. You just get a tiny bit. But at the minute, there is zero sound on this car, and that's one thing that I do think lets it down. It doesn't have the noise of the previous gen. It definitely doesn't have the noise of the RS5. The things that I've got on this car, and I'm going to show you now, though, that reason why I bought it, is it's quite well spec'd up. It's got pretty much all the tick boxes. So the car actually has the matrix lights. Now, what I didn't realise, and I don't think everyone realises, because the seller definitely didn't, it's got matrix lights on the rear, and they do this animation pattern, and I know it's a bit cheesy, but actually they look pretty cool on a night, I'm not going to lie. When you lock the car and unlock the car, it does this phasing pattern. I've actually had it now coded to do the RS pattern. Not because I want it to look like an RS again, but just because it's actually a slightly better animation. What you've also got on this one is the animation lights. So if your headlights have this tri-LED style pattern in there, they actually do like a fancy dance thing again when you lock the car, unlock the car. Not all of them have this. It's quite an expensive option, I believe, and some of them just have like a tick across there. So I believe it's quite an expensive option, but it's something, again, I bought the car for the reason that it had that, because I wanted to get those spec. I just like having a reasonable spec car. It also helps sell it on. It has got the RS3 wheels. We're actually going to be changing those out. We've got a set of Vossen HR5s that are actually like triple forged. They're going to be going on this car soon, but they actually suit the car really well. It has got wheel spacers on it, so it actually pulls them back out the arches, and it looks so much better. It actually really suits the car. You've got to put spacers on everything, let's be honest. It's been lowered as well on e-back springs, so it's got quite a good stance. And something not everyone likes and not everyone's going to agree with, the massive ducktail spoiler. Yes, it's real carbon, but I love big wings. I love spoilers, and I know it's in your face. I know it sticks up a lot. I know it's a bit too much for some people, but for me, this looks how it should. It's in your face. That's what I want. I wanted a spoiler like that. If it didn't have that, I would have ended up changing that. So what you've also got on there is, you notice you've got the canards on the bottom. Side skirts are absolutely pointless on this car because they come with a factory style side skirt, but it has got the bigger front splitter, and that makes a big difference to the car as well, especially on this, because it actually copies the lines as you'll see there, and I quite like the idea of how they've done that, because it actually looks factory, but it just gives it that much better stance. So that's my video on the 8Y model, the S3 8Y specifically. I hope it's something you like. If you want to know anything more about the car, we're probably going to do some more videos as we do some blogs on there, and we also get the car checked at CLP. And if there's anything I've got wrong about the car, because I haven't actually done a lot of revision on this, I literally just got in it, did a few test drives back to back with other cars, and this is the one that kind of took my feel, really. It felt the right car to have. So if I've got anything wrong on there, especially about the matrix lights and so on. I haven't seen them on a lot of cars. I don't think they're as common and popular as people might think they are, because a lot of people think they've got a matrix light and they've got the basic light. But anything like that, let me know. Coding wise, if anybody knows a way of actually getting the display to have the new options, I think it's a new display. But if there is a way of doing it, again, put it in the comments, let me know. And anything you think we need coding to the car using ODB11 or anything like that, let me know what we can do. Because if I can do any upgrades on this car and we can do them for free, then we're definitely going to be doing that. So again, hope you like the video, guys. Have a look for the shorts that we've put on all the Inspired Automotive social media. There's a lot going on TikTok and the short videos. And keep an eye out for a lot that's going to be coming up in this year. There's a lot of events. We're doing a lot of tours. We're going to be hitting Europe a few times, going around France. And just keep following us and see what comes up. And we'll speak to you soon.